Greetings. I'll send you all some warm, positive vibrations. So, wanted to touch in this early day in the quiet hours. Some reasonings and some contemplations. And one of them being accepting abuse from others and accepting abuse also from ourselves. So, this is Body-Culinary. If you've tuned in to this channel, on this channel, I share all things self-care, building esteem, a healthy esteem via self-care, which is a verb, not just affirmations. So that's everything from starting a garden, even if you are in the city, cultivating a movement practice, peaceful consumption, peaceful first to your own brain and body temple, and then extending that out to the creatures and the environment around you. Also, I share my journey as someone with very fine, textured afro hair, cottony hair. I share all of that on this channel, as well as hopefully some motivation for anyone that's dealing with acne, overweight, or just simply low esteem, right? And so being about the business of cultivating, just like in the garden, we cultivate soil and we can grow the soil and create healthy soil. That is representative, which is why I love the garden so much, is representative of the work that we're doing with ourselves. So that's the kind of content that I share on this channel. And so we've been exploring relaxing on purpose and being very intentional about simple breathing, something that we do every day. So while it's nice and quiet before everybody gets up, we're going to focus in on the breath. So you're welcome to find a comfortable position for yourself. And if you need to sit upright in a chair, that's fine. You want to make sure that your spine is nice and tall and that your shoulders are round, down, and back. So I like to use my clavicle as a frame of reference. And I'll squeeze my shoulder blades back. I slightly pull my belly button in. I want to make sure I don't have computer neck when my head and my neck is jutting forward. My cervical spine, I want to pull it back in alignment with my spine. Your eyes can be open or closed. And we want to dial in, focus on the breath, and listen to see if our inhale and exhale, if it's deep and if it's nice and even, if we're breathing shallow from the neck up, or if we're allowing the lungs to expand with air. So all with the intention of allowing ourselves to relax and to not feel so anxious and to be grounded and to really get clear, because there's a divine intelligence that is inside. You can place your hands anywhere that feels comfortable for you. And we're breathing today through the nose, the inhale and the exhale. So you can, if you like, you can take a moment just to scan your body to see how you're feeling inside. If you want to, you can feel your heart rate to see if it's calm, or you can notice if it's racing, or maybe perhaps you don't even dial in to see the pace of your heart rate, right? And its connection to your mood and to your thoughts. This is perhaps a good time to check in if it's something that you're working on or working through. You can ask a question of your own divine intelligence. For example, is there anything that I'm not doing? Or is there anything that I need to do differently? And just allow in the quiet the answer to come to you now, or perhaps while you're moving about during the day, during your movement practice, while you are preparing healthy food for yourself for the day, while you are cleaning. This is a perfect opportunity to cultivate a craving for quiet and quiet knowing and a confidence that answers, right, can come through your own onboard divine innate intelligence that you were born with. It does require, though, that we not just pray, not that we pray passively, praying relax, whatever definition you have of prayer, but in asking or reasoning or affirming, they're usually actions that for us to do to be in alignment with what we're asking for and for what we're affirming. So, I would say pray and power walk, pray and peel some vegetables, pray and do something, and also pray and relax, right? Knowing that you have a strategy for the actions that you are going to take around what you say is important to you and for you to experience what you would like to experience on this plane, in this life, as we know, because no one has a guarantee of what's going to happen in the afterlife. So, this is also a good time if you like to write in your journal or one of your journals. Perhaps you want different color pens and so on. So today, what I wanted to touch on in these early day reasonings is abuse from others and abuse from ourselves, something we may not contemplate. So um, the benefit, one of the positive sides of having the internet available to us is we can use the internet for something positive. There's definitely the convenience of being able to connect to someone else from their home and to share tips and insights. At the same time, the internet, as has become evident, is also a place for many voyeurs, predators, folks that want to snatch from your energy without reciprocating anonymously. It's just the climate. And it really takes something to be mindful of our ego to respond, um, and to not be triggered. Again, I know we are in a time and space of triggeration, constant triggering that has us looping trauma. There also, the internet can or provides a space for people to anonymously blurt out criticisms without any kind of care or concern, just in their need to get off or to point out something or a point of view. Um, and they don't show their face, or they're not, maybe perhaps they're wanting a connection, so they're wanting to debate and to go back and forth and to argue with others for attention. So if we really were to sit back and maybe perhaps look objectively at what is the intention of people to come online to something, let's say, for example, that they don't like, but they tune in and stay tuned in and offer criticisms from an anonymous space without expecting or desiring to have criticisms on themselves. It's kind of an interesting space, and it also has me consider the business model of social media, because there is a business model in the background, definitely of advertisers selling their products, and we all tune into different things that appeal to us, whether that's the color of the person, the hair, health information, entertainment, comedy. Everybody is tuning in to a type of mental experience that they want to have, looking to feel something and looking for a connection. But it's just very interesting. I've always been fascinated with the whys. What motivates human behavior? What motivates us to get into action, particularly when it comes around health, which is a support for us to go out and play in the world and to have different types of experiences, right? We need a healthy body and an open mind to be able to do that. At the same time, I'm equally fascinated by what drives self sabotaging behavior. I think it's absolutely fascinating that as a species, we have so many behaviors that are actually anti our own lives. And then we have a tendency to extend that out and project that out and share that with other folks. So, say, for example, as much as I love food and I'm trained as a chef and I like delicious food and flavoring, we often take food and use it to primarily for entertainment and for enjoyment without a respect for how much the body temple can hold, what is comfortable. Often we're mindless when we're eating it and not considering, first of all, that it's fuel primarily. And then secondly, there's actually even I could say disrespect, but there's another word. There's a lack of consideration for the limitations of the body to process all of this energy that we're taking in, right? In physical food, in mental food, all this stimulation and the overstimulation. I've uh, I've considered and contemplating the different emotions that come with dealing with social media. And I've experienced everything from I'm very sensitive, from being angry to, or feeling anger, and being disheartened and even sad for the, the males that go on to different pages looking to connect and look at something that is so-called beautiful or attractive or peaceful or loving, and to siphon off energy anonymously. And when I think, I used to go, I went through the emotions of like feeling sad, sorry, amazed. And so even yesterday, someone came onto the page and made a comment, their opinion of what their thoughts of my attractiveness was. And I felt like, wow, this was an anonymous person. So they stayed anonymous, not to reveal themselves or their picture to a stranger, where I don't know, I just think it's very interesting. I think it says a lot. If we just sit back rather than be triggered, it says a lot that the person would surf the internet and give their random opinion on what they think is attractive or not attractive. Like looking, if we listen to the undertones of what people are trying to express, also expressing a frustration, it also speaks to um, an under greetings. It speaks to underdevelopment. It speaks to an underdevelopment right now of the species. So while we have the freedom to come online and express all these things, um, something I made note of, I think without being a really, really intentionally conscious about how we use the internet, we can actually become underdeveloped, very, very underdeveloped. We become so reactionary to the visuals that are in front of us. We don't think before we speak, but even though we're speaking virtually, where there's a communication. So kind of honest, I notice people will not ask a question before they blurt something out through the keyboard, and it just isn't a consideration for other people and other people's feelings. There's just a basic lack of consideration. And I think, again, it speaks to really people being underdeveloped or are not seeking to develop themselves personally in terms of personal skills. So while male folks can go on, it's been all kind of crazy things that I've seen exhibited on this on social media platforms, and they vary a little bit from Facebook to Instagram. You have all kinds of men folks sending pictures of their organ parts, which it doesn't appear they consider sacred. That really speaks again to an underdevelopment, a lack of respect for themselves, but it also speaks to it speaks hugely to insecurity, and it speaks hugely to trying to exert a type of quote unquote power or psychological power to elicit a response. When someone expresses something, they're looking for a response. So it says to me that there are individuals that feel that may feel that's their only form of power, the ability to inflict a consequence on someone else. So I think it's sad that folks feel they're so powerless, and I think it's expressed differently than men and women. Now, mind you, sensuality and sexuality is something that's very natural. I don't know that people consider there is a business model. And so while folks are so busy being free expressing, they don't think of how that this system of social media is allowing them, providing the platform for them to allow themselves to be pimped out for free. Where they're pimping themselves out for free, and just these deviant behaviors to expose yourself to strangers to elicit a response. Saying weird wouldn't be enough. It's beyond sad. I just think it's really interesting. So in the final, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I will say this. I think, and I've said this for a long time, I think that there needs to be less access, right? It has to be some kind of a way that we maneuver social media, because there's too much easy access to women and children in ways that are highly influential. And I think there's definitely too much easy access to Afro women, women who have been very put upon on the world scene, and been used as a deposit for many people's appetites and deviancies and insecurities, and their internalized self-hatred projected outward. And so, like, I think Afro women have been an easy target. At the same time, I think in ignorance and in trauma, we have, in spite of ourselves, some of us, maybe unknowingly to ourselves, supported it. So that will be figured out, but there's too much easy access to women these days, women that you don't know, to express your opinions and your criticisms, when often they're unwelcome, and often I don't think people even can stop to consider the intention for offering their criticisms, or, to attack women's weight, their looks. It's a type of meanness, but just a lack of consideration. So when someone has a need to do something like that, if we sit and we think about the intention, right? So understand, so we know how to move. It just speaks largely to an insecurity, and they may feel that's the only kind of power that they have, someone that is anonymous. So I think it is important for us to be mindful of that, because of our mental health, and women as being as receivers. That's one side of women and being feminine, to balance things out, because also being feminine, another side of femininity is, if you look at even in nature, right, where we're told that femininity is just passive, that's one side of femininity. But even if we look at lions in nature, lions also hunt, and male lions protect women while they hunt. And we're not lions, but there are many principles that we can garner from nature and from creatures. So too much easy access to women. So that will be changing. So while I really think that these exchanges can be beneficial and helpful, most likely I will move some content over to some other platforms. So for folks that are interested, in particular women, you need to contact me on the website. And any men that are seeking audience, whatever or questions about your health, because that's all that I'm here for, or healthy eating for men, there is they can have access to that on the website. There's too much easy access to Afro women. And so folks are basically acting a fool. And it's not healthy for either party. That goes without saying. So, as far as accepting abuse, what I was contemplating this morning, we can sit, and it's very easy to consider the abuse that we accept from others. However, what's the connection of the accepting abuse from ourselves, right? And it's something I call that, as I observe, the backdoor mentality. The backdoor. And as someone that is a fitness coach and a nutrition coach and does what I would call food shadow work, is what I'm calling it, looking at really the undertones or the uncomfortableness or what we're trying to get away from as we're covering things up with distraction. And one of the biggest distractions today in socially acceptable drugs is food and substances also masquerading as food. So with someone who used to be a popcorn addict and a junk food addict and a vegan starchy food, addict, we may not consider overstuffing ourselves as a form of abuse. Actually, initially, you might think it's very comforting, to be experiencing the salt. I would even say it's kind of sensual, the salt and the flavorings, whether it's Doritos or Celtic or lavender sea salt, looking to feel, right? All these flavor, we're trying to feel with flavorings in the mouth. And so, the sugars and the salts and all these things, I call it the party in your mouth. We're not considering the actual size of the stomach and our capacity, how much we can hold, how much food can we hold, and how much energy it's taking to digest the food. We're not considering that we're aging the body by constantly eating, 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 even if it's from the health food store. So as I've shared before, we can have a tendency, as someone that's been on a path of healthy eating and fitness for, well over 30 years, we can have a tendency to transfer a lot of our junk food eating mentality, or fried chicken and macaroni and cheese and potato chips and upside down cake and all this stuff, transfer that over to vegan and to vegetarian. So we will wind up making everything a piece of fried chicken. If we could turn broccoli into fried chicken or turn collard greens into fried chicken. And so we never truly embrace the bitters and the discomfort that comes with, resculpting and reshaping your body, not just the shape, right? Because that's superficial, which is what I observe is why there's no sustainability, because we don't want to embrace healthy, right? I want to make the distinction, healthy discomfort. There's a part of life that's uncomfortable. That's growth and development. It's uncomfortable, even when some of our views are being challenged, or when a value, or maybe even perhaps a part of our culture that we've held so dear, we can acknowledge we're not getting a result that we want. The idea of letting something go that we're so comfortable with, whether that's a person or a food or a habit, we'll hold on to it so tightly that even when we remove the object, we'll transfer the mentality. If it hasn't been addressed, we'll transfer it over. For example, someone can drop drugs and transfer it over to cigarettes, or drop cigarettes and transfer it over to alcohol, or drop alcohol and transfer it over to food, or drop food and transfer it over to a person. So what's the thing energetically that we're looking for? So I think this can be challenging, because I never found that religion, as someone that came from a religious family, I realized at a young age that religion did not address emotional pain and emotional discomfort. We were just told, as many of our grandparents and parents were told, just to pray over everything. And so we did kind of like, not kind of, what I would call a religious bypass, right? We prayed over it and we felt better, and the music is fantastic. And I love music as much as anyone, because it can really catapult you into another frame of mind. But the issues were never really acknowledged or resolved, so they're still there. So even with eating healthy, which I think is huge, especially when it comes to whole living foods, a huge, huge tool in your mailbox, I think it can There are many things that we can use to take certain things and distraction off the table so we can have the space and the health and the mental comfortability and energy to focus on the intangibles, if that makes sense, right? So we may not consider overstuffing ourselves as a form of abuse, but the liver can only handle but so much, even if it's raw vegan. The lungs can only handle but so much smoke. The body can only take but so much being deprived of sleep. The body can only take but so much sea salt. The body can only take but so many healthy organic drinks in the absence of real Mother Nature filtered water coming out of the earth or coming out of plants. It can only take but so much of that. You can only drink but so much water before your stomach would burst. We only have but so much space in our bodies for physical food. So just the very fact that we can eat well past our capacity, if we were quiet, which is why I love the quiet moments, we can ask ourselves, ask of our own divine intelligence, what is it that I'm looking for? Right? And there begins some people say shadow work or the internal work to get to the bottom of what's really eating us, right? And what is driving us to consume way more than we need? What is driving us to abuse our organs? I know we're concerned about the muscle and pretty skin, but what is really driving us to eat and consume, even to the point of deformity? Think about that. We're stretching our bodies out and we see all the dramatic weight loss, but are we really addressing the mindset? Working in the holistic health field and in nutrition, it's not uncommon to see people um, gain weight and lose weight and gain it back. And also for folks that are very underweight and bulimic, I've encountered several people that have passed away, so they're opposite sides of the same coin. And I've also experienced people that look average, normal, that are also bulimic. So there are things that are not being addressed mentally. And then even sometimes medicating. Maybe for some people, medication may be a reality. But if we think about it, even medicating something is kind of pressing pause on the physiological functions in the brain. Is that actually, can we really call that a resolve? Are we over medicating things just in the absence of a sincere effort to resolve things? Again, who has the best interest of resolving your issues or your trauma in the absence of profit? Really, that would be you. So it's easy to pinpoint abuse from others, right? Even the anonymous folks. But what about the abuse we're inflicting on ourselves with the overconsumption, right? As a distraction from really sitting with what's really going on internally with us. So are we accepting abuse from ourselves and just letting that be okay? What's really at the root? Because that's what I would call a backdoor mentality. Sometimes we're eating all this food to comfort ourselves, but it's not really respecting or addressing the real issue of what's really going on. So peaceful consumption, and considering a mind state of peaceful consumption. Again, peaceful first to my own brain, peaceful to my arteries, peaceful to my waistline, peaceful to my mood. That mentality is so much different than dieting. It's a total nother take than dieting, and I found that it's a relief, right? Because I know for me, I've always said I'm not interested in dieting, nor am I interested in continuing the legacy and trajectory of morbid obesity and diabetes, which are just symptoms. They're symptoms. They're symptoms of how we are coping with and managing or not managing stress and the triggers that are constantly coming at us nonstop, which we have been told verbally, and the cues that we get from society, or that we are strong and we can take it as Afro women, or to just pray over it without necessarily, which doesn't equate to acknowledging or processing trauma. And so there's all the stuff that is packed down into our subconscious that is not being that's not being dealt with. And so food is one of the easiest ways that we can use to medicate us. Yes, there's spirulina, there's juices, there's wheatgrass, but we all know that when we're triggered, we're not usually reaching for celery and wheatgrass and aloe and cerasee, right? We're reaching for the sugar and the dates and the avocados and the potato chips, even if they're organic, and blue corn chips. So these are some things to consider. So I just wanted to touch in on that today. Just the abuse. I invite you to consider. And you can do it in your quiet moments. We don't have to advertise everything on social media. Sometimes I wonder about the young women. I say, and I get it. I was 20 and 21 too. Sometimes I see us doing things that we may think is so liberating, but I don't see that it's actually resolving anything. And I think quite often, if we would admit it, I don't know that young women would admit it, but just following the cue of others that we see. Humans copy each other, the good and the bad. We're social creatures. We mimic each other. And so I see many people, even across Facebook on my timeline, folks that seem to have a certain position, or they have so much positivity on their page in one aspect, and then the next numerous pictures, male and female, is of everybody butt naked with their butt shots and breast shots. And again, I'm not a prude by any means. I think it's the context. So it's not for me to condemn anyone in their art form of expression, right? Because I don't know, it's energetic. Some of it looks artistic, but most of it just looks, I don't know, something. Again, if we look at the business model of social media, many of us are looking for connection. We're looking to be acknowledged. We're seeking attention, and in the form of likes. There's definitely a psychology to it. And as I've said before, I've observed that there are companies and entities that make it their business to be experts on our psyche and how to elicit different types of behaviors. So it's showing everything online. I don't know if we're considering what our intention is. And we know in our 20s and our 30s, and now that we have older adults that are very underdeveloped, we're exhibiting behaviors that are almost like manic in our seeking of attention. So I'm not here to condemn. I'm always here to learn. It's an interesting environment, but there's an undertone of anxiety, of desperation, of frustration in a lot of what you see, because you can see the same thing, but if we were just to dial in energetically, you can sense the difference in what is being expressed online, if that makes sense. So I'm going to move on because it's early and I have my movement practice to do, and I love the early hours of the day. This is Body-Culinary. You're welcome to contribute respectfully to the conversation, inviting you to create a great day on purpose because you said so. Avail yourself of the videos on this channel. Check out the puppet series, Sister Butterfly and Sister Monkey. Learn to eat better. There's about 10 free short little episodes, which I think are hilarious, to really get people laughing and joking and smiling when it comes to peaceful consumption. So make use of those. There are different videos around if you'd like to come along on my journey to gardening and growing food. So I think my sister and I were doing pretty good for two city gals. So creating a garden, also expanding on energy consumption, peaceful consumption, which I think is bigger than any label of even vegan or vegetarian, because that does not necessarily mean that we're not stuffing ourselves to death with starch and sugar, salt, fat, which always seem to come in through the back door. So if you find any of these videos valuable, feel free to share and to contribute to the channel. Create a great day, and I'll see you soon.